So welcome everyone. It is Wednesday, March 10th, and this is a very historic day for the book report because last year on Wednesday, was our last day in the office. So we have officially been working from home for a year now. So this is a big day for us because we've gone 365 days of coming up with new ways to bring you books and authors. So with no further ado, let's go with Bookaccino Live. First, these are your top picks from last month. Those of you who answered the survey at the end of the presentation, Austin's going to be dropping that into the chat of where you can go to give us that information and answer our survey. These were your top picks. The Paris Library, The Lost Apothecary, The Girl from Channel Islands, Nadia Hashimi's Sparks Like Stars, and The Good Sister from Sally Hepworth. So super exciting to always go in and see for us, what are your favorite picks? And I'm going to give you a little secret. Go in and do it right from the beginning because they usually don't change. It's really strange. These were really maybe like one changed of the top books. So we love to hear what you have to say because it helps us figure on future presentations. So go ahead and do that. And also during the presentation, share with us what you're reading now, drop your questions into the Q&A, and Austin will be going to the questions later on. So with no further ado, our first book is, we're going to historical fiction. It's Patty Callahan's Surviving Savannah. It just came out yesterday. It was called the Titanic of the South. The luxury steamship sank in 1838 with Savannah's elite on board. Through time, their fates were forgotten until the wreck was found. When Savannah history professor Everly Winthrop is asked to guest curate a new museum collection focusing on artifacts recovered from the steamship Pulaski, she's shocked. The ship sank after a boiler explosion in 1838, and the wreckage was just discovered 180 years later. Everly can't resist the opportunity to try to solve some of the mysteries and myths surrounding the devastating night of its sinking. Research leads her to the astounding history of a family of 11 who boarded the Pulaski together, and the extraordinary stories of two women from this family, a known survivor, Augusta Longstreet, and her niece, Lily Forsyth, who was never found, along with her child. These aristocratic women were part of Savannah society, but when the ship exploded, each was faced with difficult and heartbreaking decisions. Patty did a ton of research about this book, and she's been doing Facebook live chats on Mondays talking about it. And actually the ship like split in half, and it was dragged for like 45 minutes. So as a result, the treasure is in a very large area of what was going on. And it's interesting that once again, part of the problem was that there were not enough lifeboats on the ship. And that's the reason that so many people died in this incident. So she's been researching this ship for years, yes, and the story for years. So it's, if you want something that's really rich with history and something you might not have read about, this is the one you want to do. And Kristen Hanna's calling it a beautifully richly detailed novel, atmospheric and compelling. It's a stunning cover too. Next, we've got Kate Quinn, The Rose Code. This is also on sale this week. It's a trade paperback. From the best-selling author of The Huntress and the Alice Network, returns with another heart-stopping World War II story of three female code breakers at Bletchley Park and the spy they must root out after the war is over. In 1940, as England prepares to fight the Nazis, three very different women answer the call to mysterious country estate Bletchley Park, where the best minds in Britain train to break German military codes. Let's flash to 1947. As the royal wedding of Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip whips post-war Britain into a fever, three friends turned enemies are reunited by a mysterious encrypted letter, the key to which lies buried in the long ago betrayal that destroyed their friendship and left one of them confined to an asylum. A mysterious traitor has emerged from the shadows of their Bletchley Park past, and they must resurrect their old alliance and crack one last code together. But each petal they remove from the Rose Code brings danger and their true enemy closer. So we know that Kate has written some beautiful books about World War II, that whole timing. So here is her latest. Next, from Lisa Scottolini, we have Eternal. This is a huge departure for Lisa Scottolini. It is historical fiction. And for all of you who have been reading her for suspense thrillers through the years, you are in for such a treat. Down on the bottom, you can see it's going to be a Bets On selection. It's part of our spring preview giveaway, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit more later in this presentation. And I'm also going to be interviewing Lisa, hopefully the week of publication, about what drew her to write this book. In it, Elisabetta, Marco, and Sandro grow up as the best of friends despite their differences. Their friendship blossoms to love, with both Sandro and Marco hoping to win Elisabetta's heart. But in the autumn of 1937, all of that begins to change as Mussolini asserts his power, aligning Italy's fascists with Hitler's Nazis and altering the very laws that govern Rome. In time, everything that these three hold dear, their families, their homes, and their connection to one another, is tested in ways that they never could have imagined. As anti-Semitism takes legal root and World War II erupts, the threesome realizes that Mussolini was only the beginning. The Nazis invade Rome, and with their occupation come new atrocities against the city's Jews, culminating in a final horrific betrayal. Against this backdrop, the intertwined fates of Elisabetta, Marco, and Sandro and their families will be decided in a heartbreaking story of both the best and the worst that the world has to offer. This book is deeply researched. Lisa spent a lot of time in Italy, boots on the ground. Every Tuesday night at 7:30, she's been doing a Facebook Live where she's been talking about the writing of this book. She's been sharing videos that she shot while she was in Italy. They're all going to be on her website after publication with a map so you can follow along with her story. But Eternal is very, very different for a lot of you who know about World War II and think you've read it all. First of all, you're going to love these three characters. And second of all, you're going to really love the way she portrays Italy and Rome and really gets you boots on the ground into the story there. Next, from Martha Hall Kelly, we've got Sunflower Sisters. This is on sale on March 30th. Georgiana Georgie Woolsey follows her passion for nursing during a time when doctors considered women on the battlefront a bother. In proving them wrong, she and her sister Eliza venture from New York to Washington, D.C. to Gettysburg and witness the unparalleled horrors of slavery as they become involved in the war effort. In the South, Gemma is enslaved on the Peeler Plantation in Maryland, where she lives with her mother and father. Her sister Patience is enslaved on the plantation next door, and both live in fear of LeBaron, an abusive overseer who tracks their every move. When Gemma is sold by the cruel plantation mistress Anne May at the very same time the Union Army comes through, she sees a chance to finally escape, but only by abandoning the family she loves. This is inspired by true accounts. Sunflower Sisters provides a vivid, detailed look at the Civil War experience, from the barbaric and the inhumane plantations to a war-torn New York City to the horrors of the battlefield. Now, if you recognize Martha's name, it's because of Lilac Girls and Lost Roses, the two historical fiction books that she previously wrote. Georgie Woolsey is actually the grandmother of the characters that you've come to love in the other stories. So once again, we've got a prequel to the characters that you've come to know and love. She did extensive research for this along the Civil War battle sites. My book group, my young mom's book group, had a chat with her about Lilac Girls. And during that, she actually laid out Sunflower Sisters to us, ran the plot by us, was asking us for some ideas, and swore us to secrecy about the title. And since I absolutely love sunflowers, I actually love the title of this book. She was absolutely wonderful to be talking with our group. And what she shared, we ended up having an hour-and-a-half conversation. So we've all been looking forward to this book, and it's going to be our April selection. Next, we've got the Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Wiliams, which is coming on April 6th. Esme is born into a world of words. Motherless and irrepressibly curious, she spends her childhood in the scriptorium, a garden shed in Oxford, where her father and a team of dedicated lexicographers are collecting words for the very first Oxford English dictionary. Young Esme's place is beneath the sorting table, unseen and unheard. And one day, a slip of paper containing the word bondmaid flutters down beneath the table. She rescues the slip, where she learns that the word means slave girl. And she begins to collect other words that have been discarded or regularly neglected by the dictionary men. As she grows up, Esme realizes that words and meanings relating to women's and common folks' experiences often go unrecorded. And so she begins in earnest to search out words for her own dictionary, the Dictionary of Lost Words. Set during the height of the women's suffrage movement and with Great War looming, the Dictionary of Lost Words reveals a lost narrative hidden between the lines of a history of women written by men. Inspired by actual events, author Pip Wiliams has delved into the archives of the Oxford English Dictionary to tell this highly original story. I actually heard Pip speaking about this book. She's absolutely wonderful to hear her talk. So if you have the opportunity to do that, absolutely do it. Next, we've got The Girls in the Stilt House by Kelly Mustian. This is coming on April 6th as well. Set in 1920s Mississippi, this debut Southern novel weaves a beautiful and harrowing story of two teenage girls cast in an unlikely partnership through murder. Ada has promised herself she would never go back to the trace, to her hard life on the swamp and her harsh father. But now, after running away to Baton Rouge and briefly knowing a different kind of life, she finds herself with nowhere to go but back home, and she knows there will be a price to pay with her father. Then we have Matilda, the daughter of a sharecropper. She's from the other side of Trace, doing what she can to protect her family from the whims and demands of some particularly callous locals in an ongoing struggle. She forms a plan to go north, to pack up the secrets she's holding about her life in the South and hang them on the line for all to see in Ohio. As the two girls are drawn deeper into a dangerous world of bootleggers and moral corruption, they must come to terms with the complexities of their tenuous bond and hidden past that links them in ways that could cost them their lives. And Austin, I'm just going to ask a quick question here. Is this the book that we have a contest going for right now?
I believe the contest just ended.
Just ended. Okay. So many of you may be winners of this contest, and you'll be hearing more about this book and an interview with Kelly closer to publication. Next, we have The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi. Escaping from an abusive marriage, 17-year-old Lakshmi, I have to really practice these names, makes her way alone to the vibrant 1950s pink city of Jaipur. There she becomes the most highly requested henna artist and confidant to the wealthy women of the upper class. But trusted with the secrets of the wealthy, she can never reveal her own. Known for her original designs and sage advice, she must tread carefully to avoid the jealous gossips who would ruin her reputation and her livelihood. As she pursues her dream of an independent life, she is startled one day when she's confronted by her husband, who has tracked her down these many years later with a high-spirited young girl in tow, her sister that she has never known, or known she had. Suddenly, the caution that she has carefully cultivated as protection is threatened. Still, she perseveres, applying her talents and lifting up those who surround her as she does. This is a spring preview title. And for those of you who are really fans of like seeing how henna is done or whatever, there's a special on or a series on Netflix right now about Indian weddings. And some of these weddings are completely over the top. And you're watching the henna being done on these people during the show. I want to say it's 2 different episodes in the series. And it's just so interesting to see how these usually what are week-long parties end up happening and all the special things that happen, including the applying of henna to the people as it becomes part of the ceremony. Next, we've got You Belong Here Now by Dianna Rostad. And I spoke about this book as one to look out for in April. And this is the book that when Ken Kruger was on with us in late in January, he was talking about that this is the debut that he is just singing praises of. He thinks it's one of the best debuts he's ever read. It's reminiscent of Sold on a Monday and his This Tender Land. It's coming in paperback on April 6th. It's a book reporter bets on. It's going to be in spring preview. And I am looking forward to talking to Dianna and doing an interview for Book Reporter Talks too. Okay, we've got a setting in Montana, 1925. An Irish boy is orphaned by the Spanish flu, a tiny girl who won't speak, and a volatile young man who lies about his age to escape Hell's Kitchen are paraded onto train platforms across the Midwest to work-worn folks. See, people are going to adopt these children as they stop in the train station because they need workers, they need people helping them out on their land. And these three children, well, they journey countless miles, racing the sun westward. And before they reach the last, what they know is going to be a rejection stop, the oldest, Charles, comes up with a really daring plan. And alone, they set off to the Yellowstone River and grassy mountains where the wild horses roam. Fate guides them towards a ranch of families stricken by loss. Nara, the daughter of a successful cattleman, has grown into a brusque spinster who refuses the kids on sight. She's worked so hard to get her father's respect and hopes to run their horse operation. But if the kids stay, she'll be stuck in the kitchen. She works them without mercy, hoping they'll run off, but they buck up and they show spirit. When Charles is jailed for freeing wild horses they were rounding up for slaughter, an abusive mother from New York shows up to take the youngest. She does the unthinkable, risking everything she holds dear to change their lives forever. It's beautifully done. It definitely does parallel those other two books. So if you enjoyed either one of them, highly recommend this. And look forward to seeing more from Dianna. Now we're going to go to some fiction. First, we're going with What's Mine and Yours by Naima Coster. This book is, I believe it's the Today Show pick. Let me see if I can move this down so I can see. I believe it's the Today Show pick. A community in the Piedmont of North Carolina rises in outrage as a county initiative draws students from the largely Black east side of town into predominantly white high schools on the west. For two students, Guy and Noelle, the integration sets off a chain of events that will tie their two families together in unexpected ways over the next 20 years. On one side of the integration debate is Jade, Guy's steely, ambitious mother. In the aftermath of a harrowing loss, she is determined to give her son the tools he'll need to survive in America as a sensitive, anxious young Black man. On the other side is Noelle's headstrong mother, Lacey May, a white woman who refuses to see her half-Latina daughters as anything but white. She strives to protect them as she couldn't protect herself from the influence of their charming but unreliable father, Robbie. When Guy and Noelle join the school play meant to bridge the divide between the new and old students, their paths collide, and their seemingly disconnected families begin to form deeply knotted, messy ties that will shape the trajectory of their adult lives. And their mothers, each determined to see her child inherit a better life, will make choices that will haunt them for decades to come. So this is a spring preview title. You can look forward to reading more about it out there as well. Next, we've got Willow Grove by Laura Munson, which is also a spring preview title. Here's a great tagline: you're invited to the rest of your life. And who wouldn't want to know that they're invited to the rest of their life? Three women from coast to coast and in between open their mailboxes to the same intriguing invitation. Although leading entirely different lives, each has found herself in a similar jarring crossroads. Right when these women thought they'd be comfortable setting into middle age, their carefully curated futures turned out to be dead ends. The sender of the invitation is Willa Silverster, who is reeling from the untimely death of her beloved husband and the reality that she must say goodbye to the small mountain town they founded together. Yet as Willa mourns her losses, an impossible question keeps staring in her face. So what now? Struggling to find the answer alone, fiercely independent Willa eventually calls a childhood friend who happens to be in her own world of hurt, and that's where the idea sparks. They decide to host a week-long interlude from life and invite two other friends facing their own quandaries. Soon the three women converge at Willa's Montana homestead, a place where they can learn from nature and one another as they contemplate their second acts together in a rugged wilderness of Big Sky country. This is now out in paperback. 4 women, 1 week, 1 question. It's very, very interesting to sit there and think about what it will be like for these women to come together. This is a USA Today bestseller when it was out in hardcover. Next, we've got How Beautiful We Were by Mbola Mubui, who is the author of Behold the Dreamers. We should have known the end was near. So begins Mbola's powerful second novel, How Beautiful We Were. Set in the fictional African village of Kusawa, it tells of a people living in fear and environmental degradation wrought by an American oil company. Pipeline spills have rendered farmlands infertile. Children are dying from toxic water. Promises of cleanup and financial reparations to the villagers are made and ignored. The country's government, led by a brazen dictator, exists to serve its own interests. Left with few choices, the people of Kusawa decide to fight back, and their struggle will last for decades and come at a steep price. Told from this perspective of a generation of children and the family of a girl named Thula who grows up to become a revolutionary, How Beautiful We Were is a masterful exploration of what happens when the reckless drive for profit, coupled with the ghost of colonialism, comes up against one community's determination to hold onto its ancestral land and a young woman's willingness to sacrifice everything for the sake of her people's freedom. Next, we've got At Women in Salt by Gabriela Garcia. And I know that we had a contest for this that ran earlier. And I know that many of you won and have been telling me that you're enjoying the book. It's going to be a book reporter bets on selection. And I am looking forward to talk to Gabriela and having our interview run that week of March 30th. It's set in present-day Miami. We've got Jeanette battling addiction. The daughter of Carmen, a Cuban immigrant, she's determined to learn more about her family history from her reticent mother and makes the snap decision to take the daughter of a neighbor in who has been detained by ICE. Carmen, still wrestling with the trauma of displacement, must process her difficult relationship with her own mother while trying to raise a wayward Jeanette. Steadfast in her quest for understanding, Jeanette travels to Cuba to see her grandmother and reckon with secrets from the past destined to erupt. It's a haunting meditation on the choices of mothers, the legacy of memories they carry, and the tenacity of women who choose to tell their own stories despite those who wish to silence them. Women in Salt is more than a diaspora story. It's a story of America's most tangled, honest human roots. And I absolutely love this cover as well. So looking forward to sharing much more with you about this book. Next, we've got Astrid Sees All by Natalie Standiford. It's on sale on April 6th. In New York in 1984, 22-year-old Phoebe Hayes is a young woman in search of excitement and adventure. With her best friend Carmen, she escapes to the East Village, disappearing into an underworld haunted by artists, it girls, and lost souls trying to party their pain away. Carmen juggles her junkie poet boyfriend and a sexy painter, while as Astrid the star girl, Phoebe tells fortunes in a nightclub and plots her revenge on Ivan. When the intoxicating brew of sex, drugs, and self-destruction leads Phoebe to betray her friend, Carmen disappears, and Phoebe becomes an unstoppable descent into darkness. She may have the chance to save herself and Carmen, if she can find her. But to do it, she must face what's hiding in the shadows and what she's been running from within her heart and into the dangerous midnight streets. And those who remember what really this whole time in New York could have been like, it's going to be like tripping down memory lane. This is really how crazy the city was back during those times. You know, sit there and you reflect back. It's like now Times Square and all these areas are fun to hang out in. And it's like, it wasn't quite like that at the time. Next, we've got Good Company, which is by Cynthia. Let me see if I can do her name. Diapre Sweeney. You will know her as the best-selling author of The Nest, and I absolutely love this cover. If that cover does not scream springtime, I want to go out and grow those flowers. So in this book, it's on sale on April 6th. Flora Mancini has been happily married for more than 20 years. But everything she thought she knew about herself, her marriage, and her relationship with her best friend Margot is upended when she stumbles upon an envelope containing her husband's wedding ring, the one he claimed to have lost one summer when their daughter Ruby was 5. Flora and Jillian struggled for years, scraping together just enough acting to raise Ruby in Manhattan, keep Julian's small theater company, Good Company, afloat. A move to LA brings their first real career successes, a chance to breathe easier, and a reunion with Margot, now a bona fide television star. But has their new life been built on lies? What happened that summer all those years ago, and what happens now? The author's signature tenderness, humor, and insight, Good Company tells a big-hearted story about the lifelong relationships that both wound and heal us. So there we've got Good Company. Next, we've got The 9 Lives of Rose Napolitano coming from Donna Freitas, and it's coming on April 6th. Rose Napolitano is fighting with her husband, Luke, about prenatal vitamins. She promised she'd take them, but she didn't. He promised that before they got married that he'd never want children, but now he's changed his mind. Their marriage comes to rest on this one question: can Rose find it in herself to become a mother? Rose is a successful professor and academic. She never wanted to have a child. The fight ends, and with that ends their marriage. But then Rose has a fight with Luke about vitamins again. And this time the fight goes slightly differently, and so does Rose's future, as she grapples with whether she can indeed give up one thing she thought she knew about herself. Can she reimagine her life in a completely new way? That reimagining plays out and again in each of Rose's 9 lives, just as it does for each of us as we grow into adulthood. What are the consequences of life's biggest choices? How would life change if we let go of our preconceived ideas of ourselves and become someone completely new? Rose Napolitano's experiences of choosing and then choosing again shows someone in an utterly compelling way what it means literally to reinvent a life and sometimes become a different kind of woman than you ever imagined. So Rose's life is going to play out 9 different ways. I had the opportunity to hear Donna talk about this book because she says, women are raised to say you're going to want to get married and have children. And that's the story that's told. And then along the way, some people say, I never want to have a child. I never want to get married. These are the choices I'm going to be making. And what it does is it looks at these choices in so many different ways. I think this book's going to spur a lot of conversation, probably be very interesting to do with the book club. Now we've got Pieces by Helen Oyemi, which is coming on April 6th. This is the prize-winning, best-selling author of Gingerbread Boy, Snowbird, and What Is Not Yours Is Not Yours. Returns with a vivid and inventive new novel about a couple forever changed by an unusual train voyage. When Otto and Xavier Shin declare their love, an aunt gifts them on a trip on a sleeper train to mark their new commitment and to get them out of her house. Setting off with their pet mongoose, Otto and Xavier arrive at their sleepy local train station, but quickly deduce that the Lucky Days is no ordinary locomotive. Their trip on this former steam tea smuggling train has been curated beyond their wildest imaginations, complete with mysterious and welcoming touches, like ingredients for their favorite breakfast. They seem to be the only people on board until Otto discovers a secretive woman who issues a surprising message. As further clues and questions pile up and the trip unends everything they thought they knew, Otto and Xavier begin to see them connections to their own past, connections that now bind them together. Once again, this is a very interesting cover, although a styles on that. Next, we've got thrillers and mysteries. We know a lot of you love those. First, we're starting with Harlan Coben's The Win, which will be out on March 16th. Over 20 years ago, the heiress Patricia Lockwood was abducted during a robbery of her family's estate, then locked inside an isolated cabin for months. Patricia escaped, but so did her captors, and the items stolen from her family were never recovered until now. On the Upper West Side, recluse is found murdered in his penthouse apartment alongside 2 objects of note, a stolen Vermeer painting and a leather suitcase bearing the initials WHL3. For the first time in years, the authorities have a lead, not only on Patricia's kidnapping, but also on another FBI cold case with the suitcase and painting both pointing them towards one man. Windsor Home Lockwood III, or Win, as a few friends call him, doesn't know how his suitcase and his family's stolen paintings ended up with the dead man. But his interest is piqued, especially when the FBI tells him that the man who kidnapped his cousin was also behind an act of domestic terrorism, and that conspirators may still be at large. The 2 cases have baffled the FBI for decades, but Win has 3 things that the FBI doesn't: a personal connection to the case, an ungodly fortune, and his own brand of justice. And so for all of you who have been reading Harlan for years, finally Win has his own story. So there you go. Next, we've got Jennifer McMahon's The Drowning Kind. This will also be part of spring preview. It's coming out on April 6th. When social worker Jax receives 9 missed calls from her older sister, Lexi, she assumes that it's not just another one of her sister's episodes. Manic and increasingly out of touch with reality, Lexi has pushed Jack away for over a year. The next day, Lexi's dead, drowned in the pool at their grandmother's estate. When Jax arrives at the house to go through her sister's things, she learns that Lexi was researching the history of their family and the property. And as she dives deeper into the research herself, she discovers that the land holds a far darker past than she ever imagined. In 1929, 37-year-old newlywed Ethel Monroe hopes desperately for a baby. In an effort to distract her, her husband whisks her away on a trip to Vermont, where a natural spring is showcased by the newest and most modern hotel in the Northeast. Once there, Ethel learns that the water is rumored to grant wishes, never suspecting that the spring takes an equal measure to what it gives. So here we've got The Drowning Kind by Jennifer McMahon. Next, we've got Mother May I from Jocelyn Jackson. Now, here's a little tip for you, everybody. This is today's giveaway book in spring preview. So you have until noon tomorrow to enter to win a copy of this book. I'm going to tell you about it. Growing up poor in rural Georgia, Bree Cabot was warned by her single mother that the world was a dark and scary place. But having married into the family with wealth, power, and connections, Bree Cabot now has all a woman could ever dream of. Until the day she awakens and sees an old gray-haired woman dressed all in black peering through her bedroom window, who vanishes as quickly as she appears. Must be a play of the early morning light or the remnant of a waking dream, Bree tells herself, shaking off the bad feeling that's really kind of creeping over her. Later that day, she spies the old woman again in the parking lot of her daughter's private school. Just minutes before Bree's infant son, asleep in his car seat only a few feet away, vanishes. It happens so quickly, Bree looked away for only a second. There's a note left in his place warning her that she is being watched. If she wants her baby back, she must not call the police or deviate in any way from the instructions that will follow. Bree will do whatever it takes to protect her family, but what if the cost tears their world apart? So there you've got it. Mother May I from Jocelyn Jackson. Now we're going to do some memoirs, biographies, and nonfiction. First up, we've got The Codebreaker from Walter Isaacson. You know, Walter has brought us such wonderful nonfiction through the years, wonderful biographies, and he's one of those people who does deep research, but also great storytelling. And this is the story of Jennifer Doudna, gene editing, and the future of the human race. Not too big a story to be telling. Jennifer Doudna was in 6th grade. She came home one day to find her dad had left a paperback titled The Double Helix on her bed. She put it aside, thinking it was one of those detective tales she loved. But when she read it on a rainy Saturday, she discovered she was right, in a way. As she sped through the pages, she became enthralled by the intense drama behind the competition to discover the code of life. Even though her high school counselor told her that girls didn't become scientists, she decided she would. Driven by a passion to understand how nature works and to turn discoveries into inventions, she would help make the book's author, James Watson, make what the book's author, James Watson, told her was the most important biological advance since his co-discovery of the structure of DNA. She and her collaborators turned a curiosity of nature into an invention that will transform the human race, the easy edit-to-use tool that can edit DNA. Known as CRISPR, it opened a brave new world of medical miracles and moral questions. And the development of CRISPR and the race to create vaccines for coronavirus will hasten our transition to the next innovation revolution. She, with her collaborator, Emmanuel Charpentier, won the Nobel Prize in 2020. I promise you that this is not hard reading. It's wonderful storytelling in Isaac's hands. So something you want to take a look at. And the fact that the vaccine that we're now all dying to get in our arms was really based on some research this woman did along the way is really, really interesting. Next, we've got Broken in the Best Possible Way by Jenny Lawson. It's coming on April 6th. #1 New York Times bestselling author of Furiously Happy and Let's Pretend This Never Happened, has written a deeply relatable book filled with humor and honesty about depression and anxiety. As Jenny Lawson's hundreds of thousands of fans knows, she suffers from depression. In Broken, she brings the readers along on her mental and physical health journey, offering heartbreaking and hilarious anecdotes along the way. With people experiencing anxiety and depression now more than ever, she humanizes what we all feel in an all too real way, reassuring us that we're not alone and making us laugh while she does it. From business ideas that she wants to pitch to Shark Tank to the reason why Jenny can never go back to the post office, Broken leaves nothing to the imagination in the most satisfying way. And of course, Jenny's long-suffering husband, Victor, the Ricky to Jenny's Lucille Ball, is present throughout. It's a treat for Jenny Lawson's already existing fans and to convert new ones. It's a beacon of hope and a wellspring of laughter when we all need it most. Next, I spoke about this book last time, but I'm going to reprise it now because it's coming out on April 6th. This is I Have Been Buried Under Years of Dust by Valerie Gilpere and Emily Groden. This is a remarkable memoir by a mother and her autistic daughter who have been unable to communicate until a miraculous breakthrough revealed a young woman with a rich and creative life and an interior life, a poet who'd been trapped inside for more than 2 decades. I've been buried under years of dust and now have much to say. And those were the first words that 25-year-old Emily Groden ever wrote. She was born with nonverbal autism, and her only means of communicating for a quarter of a century had been one-word responses or physical gestures. That Emily was intelligent was never in question. From an early age, she's shown clear signs that she understood what was going on, though she could not express herself. Her parents, Valerie and Tom, sought every therapy possible for her in hopes that Emily would one day be able to reveal herself. And then when this miraculous breakthrough occurred, Emily was finally able to give insight into the life, frustrations, and joys of a person with autism. We recently built a website for Valerie and Emily, which is at valeriegilpere.com. If you want to learn more, she's got some fabulous resources for anyone who may be dealing with a child who's somewhere on the spectrum, and more about her story of what has happened beyond the years. Also, you can follow Emily on social media, where you'll be able to see the absolute brilliant writing that this young girl is doing, and how many strides have been made for her just by finally be able to tell her story. Temple Grandin has given a great, a great blurb for this book. You'll find Emily's story fascinating. And from my reading of this book, you absolutely will. Now I'm giving you May titles to look forward to. And normally we give you 5, but we're giving you more than 5 because there's a bunch that I'm crazy about. So here we go. We're going to kick it off with Linwood Barclay's Find You First. And people who know, I've been a longtime fan of Linwood Barclay's, and many of you I know have been as well. This is his best book. And I'm not just the only person staying it. Stephen King is staying it as well. And he's been reading him for years. It's going to be a Book Reporter Bets on selection. I can give you a little preview. It's going to be one of our summer reading titles that we're going to be giving away as well. So let me tell you what it's about. Tech millionaire Miles Cookson has more money than he could ever spend, and everything that he could dream of, except time. He has recently been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and there's a 50% chance that it can be passed on to the next generation. For Miles, this means taking a hard look at the past. 2 decades ago, as a young, struggling Miles, he was a sperm donor, and somewhere out there, he has kids, 9 of them. As he begins to search for the children he's never known, aspiring film documentarian Chloe Swanson embarks on a quest to find her biological father, armed with the knowledge that 22 years ago, her mother used a New York sperm bank to become pregnant. Miles and Chloe eventually connect. But one by one, Miles's other potential heirs are vanishing, every trace of them, wiped out like they never existed at all. Who is the vicious killer? Another heir methodically erasing rivals, or something more sinister going on? What's happening? In Linwood's Heads, this is a brisk story, as you always know that Linwood is going to be delivering to us. And when you're reading Find You First, you cannot read the last pages. You have to promise me you won't do that, because it's got this absolutely propulsively fabulous conclusion. So there's Find You First. I like the cover too. Next, we've got Hour of the Witch, which is coming from Chris Bajalian on May 4th. Boston, 1662. Mary Deerfield is 24 years old. Her skin is porcelain, her eyes Delft blue. And in England, she might have had many suitors. But here in the New World, amidst this community of saints, Mary is the second wife to Thomas Deerfield, a man as cruel as he is powerful. When Thomas, prone to drunken rage, drives a 3-tined fork in the back of her hand, she resolves that she must divorce him to save her life. But in a world where every neighbor is watching for signs of the devil, a woman like Mary, a woman who harbors secret desires and finds it difficult to tolerate the brazen hypocrisy of so many men in the colony, soon becomes herself the object of suspicion and rumor. When tainted objects are discovered buried in Mary's garden, when a boy she has treated with herbs and simples dies, and when their servant girl runs screaming in fright from her home, Mary must fight to escape not only her marriage, but also the gallows. It's a twisting, tightly plotted novel of historical suspense, is a timely and terrifying story of the socially sanctioned brutality and the original American witch hunt. Next, we've got The Long Green Valley by Mark Sullivan, which is coming on May 4th. Many of you, I know, are fans like I was of Beneath a Scarlet Sky, which Mark published, I can't remember how many years ago. I want to say it's at least 4 years ago now. And he's back with a new historical novel, once again inspired by a family's incredible story of daring, survival, and triumph. In late March 1944, as Stalin's forces push into Ukraine, young Emil and Adelaide Martel must make a terrible decision. Do they wait for the Soviet bear's intrusion and risk being sent to Siberia, or do they reluctantly follow the wolves, murderous Nazi officers who have pledged to protect pure blood Germans? The Martels are one of many families of German heritage whose ancestors have farmed in the Ukraine for more than a century. But after already living under Stalin's horrifying regime, Emil and Adeline decide that they must run in retreat from their land with the wolves they despise to escape the Soviets and go in search of freedom. Caught between two warring forces and overcoming horrific trials to pursue their hope of immigrating to the West, the Martels' story is brutal, complex, and ultimately triumphant tale that illuminates the extraordinary power of love, faith, and one family's incredible will to survive and see their dreams realized. This is based on some people that he knew in Montana. So once again, we've got a tie back from Mark of going to tell the story. Mark was in the Ukraine doing research with bodyguards with him because it was a really, people did not want the story to be told of what was going on. So really looking forward to sharing this with you on May 4th. Next, we've got The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, which is also coming on May 4th. If you cannot figure this out, the first Tuesdays of the month are huge publishing days. We had February 2nd, March 2nd, April 6th, and now May 4th. So just jot that down so that a lot of times you're going to see a lot of books coming out that day. Well, it's usually the first day of the month is what we do. I just finished reading this book the other morning. It is going to be a bets on selection. For those of you who have read Laura before, you might have read 800 Grapes. And 800 Grapes, just give you a backstory here, is how many grapes go into a bottle of wine. So that, remember going to lunch with her one time and her telling us that story. And I've never looked at a bottle of wine the same way since. So in this book, before Owen Michaels disappears, he manages to smuggle a note to his beloved wife of 1 year. It says, "Protect her." Despite her confusion and fear, Hannah Hall knows exactly to whom the note refers. Owen's 16-year-old daughter, Bailey. Bailey, who lost her mother tragically as a child. Bailey, who wants absolutely nothing to do with her new stepmother. As Hannah's increasingly desperate calls to Owen go unanswered, as the FBI arrests Owen's boss, as a U.S. Marshal and FBI agents arrive at her Sausalito home unannounced, Hannah quickly realizes that her husband isn't who he said he was, and that Bailey may just hold the key to figuring out Owen's true identity and why he really disappeared. Hannah and Bailey set out to discover the truth together, But as they start putting together the pieces of Owen's past, they soon realize that they are also building a new future, one that neither Henna nor Bailey could have anticipated. It is so well done. It's one of those propulsive reads. When I sat there and I was reading it the other morning, I think I finished it I started one day and finished it the other. Really, really quick. And for Laura, something very different. I got to hear her talk about it the other day. It is being adapted into a show, I want to say on Netflix. I am trying to remember. I will definitely put that in the commentary next time around. Oh, by the way, she's adapting with her husband, who wrote, it was the Academy Award film that was about uncovering what was going up in Boston with the church. And I'm spacing the name of it right now. Austin will probably remind me later, but they worked on this together. Next, we've got from Mary Kay Andrews, we've got The Newcomer. Look at those little sharks in the water around that girl. Boy, does that look scary. Also coming on May 4th, as she discovers her sister Tanya dead on the floor of her fashionable New York City townhouse, Letty Carnahan is certain she knows who did it: Tanya's ex, sleazy real estate entrepreneur Evan Wingfield. Even in the grip of grief and panic, Letty heeds her late sister's warning about who's responsible for her death. If anything bad happens to me, it's Evan. Promise me you'll take Maya and run. Promise me. So Letty grabs her sister's Mercedes and hits the road with Maya. Letty is determined to outrun Evan and the law, but to run to where? She sheds her old life and checks into an uncertain future at the Murmuring Surf Motel. And as soon as you're reading a Mary Kay Andrews book, you know it's going to be some great title like that, the Murmuring Surf Motel. The Surf, as regulars call it, is the winter home of a close-knit flock of retirees and snowbirds who regard this odd duck newcomer with suspicion and downright hostility. As Letty settles into the motel's former storage room, she tries to heal Maya's heartache and unravel the key to her sister's shady past, all the while dodging the attention of the owner's dangerously attractive son, Joe, who just happens to be a local police detective. Can Letty find romance as well as room at the inn, or will Joe betray her secrets and put her behind bars? So there we've got The Newcomer. Once again, there was a note left behind. Always remember, if you're going to do something, leave the note behind. Next, we've got Andy Weir's Hail Mary. And how do you know Andy Weir? He is the best-selling author of The Martian. So is coming May 4th. Ryland Grace is the sole survivor on a desperate last chance mission. And if he fails, humanity and the earth itself will perish. I mean, like no pressure anybody, except that right now he doesn't know that. He can't even remember his own name, let alone the nature of his assignment or how to complete it. All he knows is that he's been asleep for a very long time, and he's just been awakened to find himself millions of miles from home with nothing but 2 corpses for company. His crewmate's dead, his memories fuzzily returning. Ryland realizes that an impossible task now confronts him. Hurtling through space on this tiny ship, it's up to him to puzzle out an impossible scientific mystery and to conquer an extinction-level threat to our species. And with the clock ticking down and the nearest human being light years away, he has to do it all alone, or does he? So there we've got Hail Mary from Andy Weir. Next, from Jenoff, we've got The Woman with the Blue Star coming on. You can guess it, folks, May 4th. 1942, Sadie Galt is 18 and living with her parents amid the horrors of the Krakow ghetto during World War II. When the Nazis liquidate the ghetto, Sadie and her pregnant mother are forced to seek refuge in the perilous sewers beneath the city. One day, Sadie looks up through a grate and sees a girl about her own age buying flowers. Elena Stepanek is an affluent Polish girl living a life of relative ease with her stepmother, who has developed a close alliances with the occupying Germans. Scorned by her friends and longing for her fiance who has gone off to war, Ella wanders Krakow restlessly. While on an errand in the market, she captures a glimpse of something moving beneath the grate in the street. Upon closer inspection, she realizes it's a girl hiding. She begins to aid Sadie, and the two become close. But as the dangers of the war worsen, their lives are set on a collision course that will test them in the face of overwhelming odds. So there we've got The Woman with the Blue Star. Now, not coming on May 4th, but coming on May 11th, mark that down, a different date for you to remember, is The Plot by Jean Hanff Korelitz. Stephen King just gave this a rave this week. I am reading this right now, and it is really good. So what we've got is Jake Finch Bonner, who was once a promising young novelist with a respectably published first book. Today, he is teaching in a third-rate MFA program and struggling to maintain what's left of his self-respect. He hasn't written, let alone published, anything decent in years. Whenever Evan Parker, his most arrogant student, announces he doesn't need Jacob's help because the plot of his book in progress is a sure thing, Jake is prepared to dismiss the boast as amateur narcissism. And then he hears the plot. When he later discovers that his now former student has died, presumably without ever completing the book, Jake does what any self-respecting writer would do with a story like that, a story that absolutely needs to be told. In a few short years, all of Evan Parker's predictions have come true, but Jake is the author who's enjoying the wave. He is wealthy, famous, and read all over the world. But at the height of his glorious new life, an email arrives, the first salvo in a terrifying anonymous campaign. You are a thief, it says. As Jake struggles to understand his antagonist and hide from the truth from his readers and his publishers, he begins to learn more about his late student, and what he discovers both amazes and terrifies him. Who was Evan Parker, and how did he get this idea for his sure thing of a novel? What's the real story behind the plot, and who stole it from whom? What's really crazy is there's at the beginning, Evan is telling him how he thinks he should be published. In fact, he's going to change his name to Parker Evan because he thinks it'll be cooler. And this is a surefire bestseller. Just everything that an inspiring writer who knows nothing about the business would be saying. And it's absolutely, that part was absolutely funny because you just realize this guy has no concept that he's ever going to be edited, that he's going to be writing the book over and over, and how tough the road to publication is going to be. So that's the plot. And then from Jennifer Weiner, also coming on May 11th, is That Summer. Daisy Shoemaker couldn't sleep. With a thriving cooking business, a full schedule of volunteer work, and a beautiful home in the Philadelphia suburbs, she should be content. But her teenage daughter can be a handful. Her husband can be distant. Her work can feel trivial, and she has lots of acquaintances, but no real friends. Still, Daisy knows she's got it good. So why is she up all night? Well, Daisy tries to identify the root of her dissatisfaction. She's also receiving misdirected emails meant for a woman named Dianna Starling, whose email address is just one punctuation mark away from her own. While Daisy driving carpools, Dianna is chairing meetings. While Daisy's making dinner, Diana's making plans to reorganize corporations. Diana's glamorous, sophisticated, single lady life is miles away from Daisy's simpler existence. When apology leads to an invitation, the two women meet and become friends. But as they get closer, we learn that their connection was not completely accidental. Who is this other woman, and what does she want from Daisy? And I was laughing reading this because this person is one digit off. There is a realtor whose area code is my same phone number, except that they have a different area code. The last 7 numbers are the same. And I keep getting calls from these women. They're like crazy people going, look, I've got the home inspection going on this afternoon. And they never give me a chance to like say more than hello. And they're spewing whole things. I don't know if I can get the mortgage signed off on all this stuff. And I'm just sitting there like, excuse me. And she has the same first name as me. So they'll say, hi, Carol. And we start having these whole conversations. And I realize I can't help them. And then they start asking me why I can't help them. So maybe I've got the plot of a book there too, because it's really quite funny. And it happens a lot. And now we've got from Viola Shipman, the Clover Girls. Those of you who are longtime readers of the site know how much we really love Viola Shipman's work. Viola Shipman is actually the pen name of Wade Rouse. His last book was The Heirloom Garden, which is the reason I'm growing some beautiful plants in the backyard that he has actually told me are going to be some of the first to come up. I went out and bought them after reading the book last year, and I'm already starting to plan my gardening from this year after reading that book, because there were some early plantings I couldn't do based on my not reading the book till May or June. So let's go to the Clover Girls, totally different story. It's coming on May 18th. And in it, Elizabeth, Veronica, Rachel, and Emily meet at Camp Birchwood as girls in 1985, where over 4 summers they were the Clover Girls, inseparable for those few magical weeks of freedom until the last summer that pulled them apart. Now, approaching middle age, the women are facing challenges they never imagined as teens, struggling with their marriages, their children, their careers, and wondering who it is they see when they look in the mirror. Then Liz, V, and Rachel each receive a letter from Emily with devastating news. She implores the girls who were once their best friends to reunite at Camp Birchwood one last time, to spend a week together, revisiting the dreams they put aside and repair the relationship they'd allowed to sour. But the women are not the same idealistic, confident girls who once ruled Camp Birchwood, and perhaps some friendships aren't meant to last forever. So for anybody who's ever been away at camp, for anybody who's ever had a long-standing friendship with friends by the pool all summer, this one's for you. That's our wrap up. This is a list of all the spring titles that we are featuring in our spring preview promotion right now. It'll be running till April 23rd. And if you remember, each of these books you're available to win within a 24-hour period in contests that run from Mondays through Thursdays. They're not every Monday through Thursday. So you got to pay attention to the emails that come into your mailbox where you can sign up for our spring preview email. Or you're going to need to look on the site every day because we will be posting if there's a contest. So remember, Mother May I is today's contest. And I don't have any hints of tomorrow's because I can't remember. Next, we've got, these are all my early bets on selections, everything that I've selected recently on one page. So we're at, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. And I've already got others that you saw are cooking in my mind that will be joining this. These will also be part of our year-end giveaway, but I encourage you to sit and read them now. And also these are our recent video podcasts. We've been having just so much fun with these. If you haven't listened to the one with Chris Whitaker about We Begin at the End, just listen to the beginning of it for the story of how his road to publication. He's absolutely charming. He's from the UK. I'd met him back in September when I did a trade show event and interviewed him then, and I couldn't wait to share him with you. Yellow Wife is absolutely terrific by Sadiqa Johnson. Paris Library. Janet's book is absolutely terrific. It'll make you feel like you're back in Paris. Jane Harper was so happy to talk to her. She lives in Australia. Her books are really set in that part of the world. From this, I learned exactly where Tasmania is on a map, south of Australia, west of New Zealand. Power Couple, great thriller from Alex Berenson. We talked a lot about everything that, like, how he came up with the story of this book. And we talked about that cover as well. And Lisa Gardner, before she disappeared. You've known Lisa for years. This actually becomes the start of a series, though it was going to be a standalone. Got that happening. Our next Bookaccino live event is going to be on Wednesday, April 14th at 2 o'clock. The sign up will be live later today. And knowing Tom Donadio, our editorial director, you can expect it up shortly so you can get on and sign up. I will be sending a note to everybody who is attending live today in a little bit with the link to the wait 1 second, with the link to the Survey Monkey so that you'll be able to enter to win, but at least you've got this information. And I will be sending the sign up link to you as well. So those who are here and those who aren't here that are watching this, you will be getting the link in your follow-up email if you signed up for this event. If not, go on to Bookreporter. You can always sign up there. Our next live event, our live book club event, will be on March 25th at 8 o'clock p.m. with Kim Michelle Richardson. And we'll be discussing The Book Woman of Troublesome Creek. I have not read this book, so I am looking forward to reading it because I know so many of you have enjoyed it. Many of you talked to Kim Michelle before with your book groups. So looking forward to this conversation Thursday, March 25th at 8 p.m. Well, thank you so much to everyone for joining us. I hope we were able to answer questions. Once again, I will follow up later today with the link for the entering the contest. The video will be put up without the Q&A over the next couple of days. And thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in April. Remember, we can't do this without your signing on. We're hoping that you continue to want to do this virtually after the pandemic ends, because we want to keep being able to do this. And once again, I will have the links to Tucson, to the interviews I've done, and to a lot of things in the newsletter on Friday. So thanks, everyone.